Okay, I have no idea whether this is working or not, but we'll give it a try. This is an article that I wrote for a now defunct free weekly newspaper called the Zenith City News. Somebody has reappropriated the name because Duluth, Minnesota has often been called the Zenith City of the Northland or some bullshit like that. Anyways, this article is on the polymet mining controversy of a few years ago. I guess it's currently still a controversy, but I haven't kept up on it. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this on the screen. It says, some months ago, I was asked to write a layperson's guide to the science behind sulfide mining in Minnesota. Well, that's kind of a misnomer because they're not really mining sulfide. It's just what they fucking call it. And, anyways, let's go on. Its risks and rewards and the claims and refutations made by those debating the issue. Admittedly, I was a bit biased, having spent my formative years in Kentucky's coal mining country. One did not have to travel far to see the acidic day-glow orange streams like those featured in examples of acid mine damage. I am also a rationalist who understands that if the world is to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, plus put a smartphone into the hands of every drooling moron, everyone alive today, we need the raw materials. They have to come from somewhere. Maybe we can recycle and repurpose the materials already above ground to create a carbon neutral future. Maybe not. It would require an almost Herculean change in individual and collective habits, so the smart money is on maybe not. Until asteroid mining becomes a thing, we're not left with a lot of choices. The subject of sulfide mining and its possible adverse environmental consequences is quite involved as it draws on the disciplines of chemistry, geology, hydrology, economics, ecology, plant, and microbiology. I am no expert in any of these subjects. I'm just an uber nerd who spends his free time reading peer reviewed journals. Even so, reading through documents such as Polymet's technical report filed with the SEC was like sitting through the third installment of The Lord of the Rings. Frodo has destroyed the One Ring, the Eagles are carrying him off to safety, and you're full of soda and need to pee badly, but the fucking movie just won't end. There are 8 separate epilogues to sit through before the credits roll. I feel sorry for the brokerage house interns who are forced to ingest and regurgitate the information contained in such documents. Anyways, I do have to say that after reviewing all the information that I could get my hands on, trying to apply Occam's razor to the whole affair, I came to a different conclusion than that proposed by either industry or environmentalists. One that belies my previous bias. So, what do we know? Mining in Minnesota has been going on in one form or another since the early 1800s, when limestone and granite quarries provided much of the building materials of that time. Iron mining in the 1880s helped launch America into its position as an industrial superpower. 140 years later, iron mining is very much in decline. Outside of a few hot spots caused by abandoned mine pits and tailing piles, Minnesota wildernesses are still relatively pristine. A century and a half of activity did not utterly devastate the environment. Iron is not Minnesota's only mineralogical resource. Many companies have proposed plans to mine copper and nickel, as well as smaller amounts of gold, platinum, and palladium. Polymet's NorthMet project is extremely close to being given the green light by the state of Minnesota. The materials to be mined were put in place 1.1 billion years ago when the North American continent was in the process of splitting in two. A massive rift formed in the Midwest centered on Lake Superior, which allowed magma to flow to the surface and cool. The rifting eventually stopped, leaving successive layers of basalt peppered with pockets of mantle material such as I can't read that word. Anyways, periodotite and the aforementioned copper nickel sulfate inclusions. The sulfates seem to have been deposited mostly during the first wave of eruptions as they lie at the bottom of this layered formation known as the Duluth Complex. Let me scroll a little bit here for y'all. Oops. And of course I lost my place. Jesus. Okay, here we go. The copper nickel sulfate deposits along the Duluth Complex footwall have been known about for decades. The finds were never developed because the rock was considered a low-grade ore with a low rate of return excuse me, on the money spent to refine it. Increasing demand for metals along with advancements in mining technology have changed the equation by which this grade of ore is monetized. In the case of Polymet's NorthMet project, the ore will be extracted through the creation of 3 open-pit mines. The biological material will first be stripped, with the downed trees being sold off as lumber and the peat saved for future reclamation purposes. Next, the overlying layers of basaltic rock, known as overburden, will be removed, sorted by its sulfate content, and placed in one of 4 piles. Systems will already be in place under each stack to collect and treat water runoff as each is exposed to the elements. The sulfate-rich ore will be loaded onto a rail car and sent a short distance to be crushed, autoclaved, floated, and skimmed. The metallic concentrates, many still bound to sulfate molecules, will be shipped elsewhere for further refinement. The byproducts from the various stages of separation will be fed into an on-site tailings pond. It is here that a significant portion of the sulfates extracted will remain. So why is all this a problem? There is ample opportunity at several points in the mining operation for sulfates and other compounds to be leached away via rainwater, to be chemically altered through weathering or biological activity, and to wind up contaminating nearby streams and wetlands eventually. Sulfates in and of themselves are not dangerous. It is the sulfides that become it is the sulfides they become that pose much of the problem. Sulfates exposed to oxygen and water through weathering can transform into sulfide acids. Acids are particularly adept at leaching heavy metals from their surroundings, as well as altering the pH of any water supply into which they settle. Most aquatic plants, such as wild rice, thrive in waters with a neutral pH level. Sulfates that have settled into the sediment of lake beds and marshes are picked up and utilized as an energy source by anaerobic sulfur-reducing bacteria that dwell in the muck. These microbes do not reduce the amount of sulfate present, but instead use sulfur compounds as reducing agents, much in the same way other organisms use oxygen. Sulfur-reducing bacteria and their extremophile cousins create and perpetuate an acidic environment in which sulfur in various forms is kept in play through continuous recycling. Usually these bacteria rely on the limited amount of naturally occurring sulfates found in decaying plant matter to maintain life. Influxes of additional sulfates set off a population explosion which upsets the natural balance of the wetland ecosystem. As these little buggers chew through the available carbon sources, they kick up a cloud in the form of dissolved organic carbon, muddying the water and blocking sunlight that would otherwise be utilized by plants like wild rice. The acids they generate lower the pH of the surrounding water, which also affects wild rice negatively. Oh God, really? A down arrow gives me a whole page? What? Oh, I see what happened. It's just fucking stupid. Okay. Move this up. Sorry, folks. Sulfur-reducing bacteria have also been heavily implicated in the methylation of mercury. Methyl mercury, or CH3HG, aka MEHG, is produced from airborne inorganic mercury that rains down from sources such as coal-fired power plants, quickly absorbed by organisms such as fish because it mimics an essential amino acid. It is slow to be metabolized and shed from the body. It is known as a bioaccumulative toxicant, as its effects magnify up the food chain. Methylmercury is known to cause heart disease, neurological damage, and congenital disabilities in humans. Okay, what are the vectors for contamination? As said before, there are 3 points in the North Met mining operation whereby sulfates might transform into sulfides and leak into the water supply. Those points being the mine pits, the overburdened piles, and the tailings pond. PolyMet's proposal includes plans for an on-site wastewater treatment facility which would siphon off the overflow and runoff from each of those mentioned. The water collected would have its pH restored, and dissolved solids would be allowed to settle out before being discharged into the environment. The mine pits are the most worrisome of the three in the short term. Anytime a big hole is dug deep into bedrock, it tends to fill with anoxic rainwater, setting up the perfect conditions for extremophile bacteria to thrive. Having spent untold millennia eking out a living inside of the pores and cavities of the rocks itself, these organisms are now free to set up the acidic conditions they require, utilizing accumulating rainwater and the sulfates contained in both the mine walls and the resulting dust created by blasting. The porous nature of the basalt and the fracturing from blasting provide a possible transport mechanism for this acidic metal-laden water to flow outside the confines of the mining operation. Eventually, as operations come to a close, the mine pits will be backfilled with the overburden and the conserved peat material replaced. A Minnesota-based company, Clearwater Leyline LLC, is spearheading research into using the power of sulfate reducing bacteria for sequestration. Their floating bioreactor, designed to be used in mine pits, contaminated waterways, and wastewater treatment plants, resembles a boat dock outfitted with solar panels. The two-stage system first pumps the sulfate-laden water wherein the microbes convert it to hydrogen sulfide. I found a mistake, sorry. The sulfide is then combined with a metal like iron, which allows for precipitation and collection. Their approach is novel but does have one drawback. Sulfate reducing bacteria tend to methylate inorganic mercury if it is present. If a body of water is exposed to the open air, atmospheric mercury has settled into it. Should clear water ley line resolve this issue, they will have created a powerful pollution prevention and remediation tool. The tailing ponds will contain the highest concentration of sulfates by volume. The 6,170,000 tons lifetime total of non-commercial byproducts from the autoclaving and flotation process will be funneled into the pond. According to Polymet's final EIS, environmental impact statement, these waste materials will consist of sand-like silicates, iron, aluminum, and magnesium hydroxides, calcium carbonate, the minerals jarosite, gypsum, and straight-up rust, aka iron oxide. The hydroxides mentioned above have properties and uses ranging from antacid to laxative, to fire retardant and wastewater treatment. Overburden will capture more carbon than the operation will emit over its lifetime. This would require, however, that Polymet put in place enhanced weathering techniques such as crushing the waste rock to increase the surface area. The company should at least assess how much carbon will be locked away during the decades the rock waits for reburial and then try to capitalize on the carbon credits. Let's see if we can get the page. Yeah, okay. There we go. Gypsum, used in plaster, fertilizer, baking, and food prep, can also remove lead and arsenic from water. The gypsum produced during the solution neutralization process will be of commercial grade or better. That is, very few impurities. Polymet is going to allow future market forces to determine whether the gypsum that it generates will be sold off or sent to the tailings pond. At this point in researching the story, I had to stop and say, what the fuck? Near laboratory grade gypsum will be created, locking up a considerable amount of sulfates in the process. And there is a chance that it will be thrown out on the rubbish heap where it might leak into the environment. For some reason, this reminded me of the tales I heard as a kid of the nefarious big city trophy hunters who used to come to the Northland to hunt deer, taking only the antlers and leaving the carcass to rot in the field where it was slain. All of the kill should be used and consumed, if for no other reason than to show respect to the local community as well as the animal. There's certain short-sightedness in not requiring mining operations to monetize every atom and molecule that has commercial use. If the gypsum were taken out of the equation, that would leave the mineral jarosite as the only sulfate source in the tailings pond. Jarosite, also known as potassium iron sulfate, has been widely implicated as a cause of acid mine drainage. The mineral has no real commercial use, but is highly favored by anaerobic sulfate-reducing bacteria. Plans are in place to treat and recycle the tailing pond water via WWTF throughout the wastewater wastewater treatment facility throughout the operation of the mine. It is a bit more nebulous as to whether monitoring and remediation will continue after mining ceases. Those opposed to sulfide mining immediately raised issues concerning the estimated lengths of time as well as astronomical costs required for storage and treatment of the tailings. A $500 million price tag has been bandied about, as well as a 500-year monitoring and amelioration requirement. Will PolyMet still exist that far into the future? If they fold up shop someday, who picks up the ball and runs with it after that? Minnesota taxpayers. The composition of the sulfate-laden waste in PolyMet's holding tank will still be more or less the same centuries from now. The risk of leakage and contamination only increases as time passes and structures age. Okay, let's talk about the overburden now. God damn, this is a long article. Can't believe I wrote all this shit. Took me like a month. Anyways, in each of the 4 waste rock storage locations, a drainage system will be put into place prior to the placement to collect any runoff for treatment. As mentioned previously, the rock will be assessed and sorted according to its sulfate content, which will range from near 0 to 6%. One factor in the sulfate debate that gets very little attention is the chemical makeup Why did I write that? Is the chemical makeup of that which constitutes the other 94% of the basaltic rock that is the overburden. Now we're getting to the good part here, folks. Basalts, like those of the Duluth complex, are rich in minerals containing silicon metallic oxides, otherwise known as alkaline earth cations, which is a fancy term for reacts well with acids. Mixing sulfuric acid with water and each of the 2 primary minerals, olivine and plagioclase, produces sand-like quartz plus either Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate, or gypsum, calcium sulfate, respectively. This ability to neutralize extends to weak solutions such as carbonic acid, which is formed when falling rainwater mixes with carbon dioxide in the air. When this slightly acidic liquid comes into contact with minerals, bicarbonates, like those found in limestone, are created. Some research projects, as well as commercial businesses, have sought to quantify and capitalize on the carbon capture potential of basaltic rock. A joint Icelandic-American research project has been testing the effectiveness of injecting CO2-infused water deep into Iceland's volcanic rock formations. Beginning in 2012 with the successful injection and mineralization of 250 tons of carbon, the project as of 2017 has scaled up to 10,000 tons sequestered per year. The municipality of Leek in the Netherlands has begun mixing olivine into asphalt and applying it to a test section of highway. It is expected to lock away 40,000 kilograms of CO2 over a 6 to 8 year time frame. The reflective nature of olivine also helps provide contrast between road and roadside, and so that cyclists and obstacles are seen earlier. In August of 2017, The Guardian profiled a company in Australia, Mineral Carbonation International, that uses basaltic rock to capture carbon and turn the resulting minerals into concrete. Concrete production accounts for over 5% of global CO2 emissions, mainly through the heating of limestone to create lime. Polymet is proposed using some of the overburden as an on site construction material, and the rest would be backfilled into the mine pits. The state of Minnesota has suggested that abandoned overburden piles from older mines be processed into decorative landscaping rock. The potential is there for Polymite to claim that the weathering of their overburden will capture more carbon than the operation will emit over its lifetime. This would require, however, that Polymet put in place enhanced weathering techniques such as crushing the waste rock to increase surface area. The company should at least assess how much carbon will be locked away during the decades the rock waits for reburial, and then try to capitalize on the carbon credits. Didn't I say that like 19 paragraphs before? Which brings us to the Earth Emergency style pollution solution. My column used to be called Earth Emergency. I inherited it from some other guy. His column was all about doom and gloom, doom and gloom. Mine was about solutions. I'm all about solutions. Anyways, donate the gypsum to Habitat for Humanity, crush the overburden, skip the 500-year treatment plan, and bury everything in the same hole from whence it came. But wouldn't that contribute to acid mine drainage and additional sulfates in the water supply? Not necessarily. As previously mentioned, sulfur-reducing bacteria are the primary engine driving acid mine drainage. If an acidic environment is unable to form due to rapid neutralization, the microorganisms that depend on it will fail to gain a foothold. There are enough natural antacids in the overburden that if it were crushed to give it more surface area, applied liberally to the mine pits as they are excavated, it would counteract any acids created via hydrological weathering or biological activity. It would be akin to encasing a bottle of vinegar within a 4-ton block of baking soda. I think that's where I ended the article. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, let's shut down this stream and see if any of the sound came through. Okay, so I'm going to end this. Well, I thought I was going to end it.